Hello everyone, Stormy here, and welcome back to another quick tutorial. So, over the past few days I've been working on hand presence for my internship project, and you all know that I have had a blast of a time getting everything set up. I've got animations for a fist, for a grip button, for a trigger, which is like a pinch, and there was one more that I was wanting to add, and it was a pretty easy addition, but I just had to figure a few things out. I wanted to add a pointer finger animation, and as you know, the 2D Cartesian graph that I created for the previous animation only allowed for two variables at once. So I could have the grip and I could have the trigger, but I couldn't have a capacitive trigger variable as well because let me show you. Not only because this script didn't have access to a trigger capacitive variable, it just had the trigger and the grip variables, but as well, if I go back to the animator here, so we have this guy. So if we open up our tree here, you can see it's just two. So it doesn't have access to a third dimension, essentially. So I couldn't just add one in. So I realized that because it's just a Boolean value, it would be super easy to just go into my main layer here and add a transition to go to another blend. And because I'm not doing a thumbs up animation right now, it doesn't have to connect to a third value, which can make some weird stuff happen. It's just a pointer finger so that people can interact with objects with a pointer finger. So all I had to do was create a new variable with a Boolean value. So I just went up here and I added a bool and I named it bTrigger, so Boolean trigger. And then I added a new blend tree here. And this blend tree, if you think about it, is super simple because when you have, as long as you don't think about your thumb, which I'm not because this is going to be working on several different headsets and not every headset that XR works with has an option to do a thumbs up. I think Windows MR doesn't have capacitive joystick, so it can't do that. But if you think about it, there's a trigger and there's a grip trigger. Those are the two main inputs for a regular VR controller. And if you don't have your finger on the main index trigger, just the grip trigger, there's only two animations that can play. Either you have the hand is open, meaning the grip trigger is not being pressed down, or you have the trigger is all the way pressed in. So I am using that in my blend tree here. You can see I'm still using my grip variable from before, but it's just using, I don't know if it doesn't want to let me show a model here for some reason. But essentially I'm going back and forth between this guy and this guy, and I'm just sliding this grip trigger value up to slide between the idle open hand pose and the pointer finger pose. So once I get over to this, it's super easy because we only have two possible animations that we can go between. The hard part is making the script for hand presence recognize that the index trigger is capacitive, because they're wanting to get rid of the Oculus stuff, because I don't know, SteamVR doesn't have their package in yet, so you can't use the XR kit that I'm using right now with SteamVR until they update and add that in. But currently the only one of the packages that are included in XR that use the capacitive trigger is the Oculus package, and so since it's not going to be equally distributed across VR platforms, the UnityXR package says that it's a deprecated value and it's going to get rid of it soon. Currently, in this most recent update for this current version of Unity, it's still in there and it's still functioning, so that's good. So for what we're doing right now, it's going to work just fine. So if I just slide this off to the side here, actually before I do that I need to show you. So in here, this transition, it's literally just a condition parameter that is asking if this Boolean that we set is false, and if it is, it's going to move over to this guy, and if it becomes true, then it's going to move back over to our main blend tree with the 4 different options. So all we have to do in our code is get this guy to turn on and off, depending on whether or not the index trigger has a finger on it or not. And I went ahead and set these to have just a very basic transition, so they go fast in between and don't have like a lag time between the blend trees, because that looks weird. So let's go and look at our prefabs here. So you can see the hand presence prefabs are not using the hand presence script anymore. They're using a copy I made that's called pointer pres, and it has all the same stuff on it, but it's got some extra stuff inside it. So let me go to scripts, and you can see we have the deprecated hand presence. I kept a copy of it, but I renamed it so that I remember that it's not the one I'm using anymore. And then I made a duplicate of it, which I renamed pointer pres. You can see even in the public class right there, I renamed it so that it would work correctly. And then if we open it up here, this is, let me stretch it out here. Okay, so we have pretty much all the same stuff in here. I haven't really added anything to this area. All that I've done is I've created a new void, which I called update pointer, and this is getting called at the same time that update hand animation is getting called. Technically, I probably could have combined these 2 voids and just make them the same looping piece of code, but I just thought it would be easier to not have to shove it down at the bottom there, because I have a habit of messing up the little signs here, and I didn't want to have a chance of that. So I just went down here and I made a new void just called update pointer, and then inside of there I'm asking for the target device to get the feature value. 1 is a float value, which is a little weird because it's just an on-off value. It's not checking like how close to my trigger the finger is. It's just capacitive, so is it on or is it off? But for some reason Oculus decided to make it a 0 to 1 value rather than a on-off value. So we are asking for the common usages.indexTouch, which again is deprecated. It's being moved to the Oculus package. So it says please use Oculus usages.indexTouch. But they don't tell you how to set that up, so I have no idea how to get to that, so we're using the common usages one for now. And then we are putting that as an out float, and we're going to name it trig float, just so it's easy to access. Then we have the void here for that, so we're taking trig float, and we're saying, hey, is it greater than 0? 0 means that my finger is not on the trigger. If it is, then we are going to set that trigger to true. So again, if we're setting that trigger to true, that's going to activate this transition, which is going to send it back to our main blend tree. So by default, if we're not even grabbing the controller, it's going to go straight to this blend tree. But once we grab the controller and our hands on all the buttons, then it's going to transition over to our main blend tree over here. And if we go down here, so when we do that, it's going to set that B trigger value in here to true, and then it's going to have an else, and so that means that if it is at 0, not if it's greater than 0, if it's at or below 0, then it's going to set that B trigger to false, which is then going to allow us to do the finger pointer animation. And then we also have another else here, meaning that if we don't get this value, it's just going to automatically set it to false. I might actually want to set that to true, because that might mean that on Windows mixed reality devices, since they don't have this value, it'll automatically make it set to the invalid value, and it'll automatically set to false, meaning that Windows mixed reality would only have pointer and open hand positions, so I'll have to think about that. But yeah, so that is how it works for now. Then again, we take this update pointer void and we call it when we update the hand animation down here in the void update. And so once we have all that set up, then we can go back to Unity. And all I had to do to get that working is go to my prefabs and replace the hand pointer script that was in here before, replace it with the pointer presence script, and reset it up with all the models that we had before. And then it's working just fine. So let me pop this guy out real quick here, and I will show you what it looks like in game. Go. Start sign there we go. Alright, so you can see we've got our head still working, there's our hands over there. Okay, and again, I made a left prefab for this hand, right prefab for this hand, and they're set up opposite, so the animators had to be copied and redistributed as well. But now we have, if my fingers are on the index trigger and I pull down, we get this guy, and if I pull down the grip trigger, we get the joystick animation. But then as soon as I let go of the index trigger, boom, it pops to the pointer finger. So I can use that to press buttons or to click down on stuff. And I'm going to be putting like a collider on this finger so that when it does that, it's super easy to get stuff pressed in the world that I want. And then as soon as we put our finger back on, it goes back to that animation. So very smooth click between those two states, which I think is really cool. And then again, if I let go of the grip trigger, it just goes back to the idle animation. And then if I put my finger back on, you can see it doesn't change, it just stays on that open one until I move one of the triggers again. So yeah, that is how that one works. I hope you guys enjoyed that quick tutorial on how to add index trigger functionality to your XR game. And until next time, I'll see you in the field, agents.